Chapter 1. The Letter in the Coat. The man who walked me down the aisle was the same man my dying mother spent 20 years trying to expose. I did not know that when I found the first letter sewn inside the lining of her old gray coat. I only knew one thing. My father's death had never been an accident. For most of my life, I believed my mother did not know how to love me properly. Her name was Helen Lawson, and she was not cruel, not careless, not the kind of mother anyone could accuse of neglecting a child. She paid bills before they were due, ironed shirts with a precision that felt almost military, repaired loose buttons before I noticed them, and filled the cupboard with quiet competence. But she was not warm. She did not hug easily. She did not touch my hair when I cried. She did not say the soft things other mothers said in parking lots, on porches, beside beds. There was always a pane of glass between us, clear enough for me to see her, thick enough that I never felt I could reach her. When I was young, I thought the glass was my fault. When I was a teenager, I thought it was punishment. When I became an adult, I decided grief had simply frozen her into a shape she could not escape. My father, Robert Lawson, drowned when I was 11 years old in the lake behind the house where we lived then. They said it was an accident. He had gone out alone in the little boat on a calm autumn evening, and he had not returned. The boat was found near the reeds the next morning, drifting and empty. My father was found in the cold water nearby. That was the story. Everyone said the same word. Accident. At 11. You believe the words adults repeat, because the alternative is too large to fit inside a child. After my father died, my mother moved us away from the lake. She closed around herself. She became practical, watchful, distant, and where my mother grew colder, my Uncle Ray grew warmer. Ray Lawson was my father's younger brother. He remembered every birthday. He took me out for dinner after school plays and graduations. He helped me with rent once in my 20s and made me promise never to feel embarrassed for needing family. When I married, it was Ray who walked me down the aisle in my father's place, his arm steady beneath my hand, his voice breaking when he told me my father would have been proud. For 20 years, I thought Ray was the warm side of my broken family. My mother passed away on a gray morning at the end of winter. After a long illness, she had treated as if it were an inconvenience rather than an ending. 3 weeks after the funeral, I was sorting through her bedroom. She had kept too many coats, all sensible and plain. Gray, brown, navy, the colors of a woman who never wanted to be noticed. I was folding them for charity when my fingers found something stiff inside the hem of her oldest wool coat, a flat rectangle, sewn into the lining. It had not slipped there. It had been hidden. I cut the stitches with her own sewing scissors. A folded letter fell into my lap. My mother's handwriting was small, neat, slanted, unmistakable. My dear Emily, it began, "If you have found this, then I am gone, and you have gone slowly through my things, the way I always knew you would. I am sorry for the glass between us. I know you felt it. I know it hurt you, before anything else. You must know this. It was never that I did not love you. It was that I loved you so much, I could not let you near the thing I was carrying. I chose to let you think me cold, rather than let the truth touch you before you were old enough to survive it." I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking so badly the paper rattled. "You are old enough now." The letter continued, "And I am not here anymore to keep it from you. Your father did not die the way they said he died. I never believed it was an accident, not for one single day. But if I had told you when you were young, you would not have believed me. Worse, you would have believed the person who needed you not to believe me. There are truths that cannot simply be handed to someone. They have to be reached, step by step, until there is no room left for doubt. So I have left you a path. The way I used to leave you little games when you were small, one clue leading to the next, each hidden where only you and I would know, or in the hands of someone who has carried a piece of the truth long enough. Follow them, Emily, all the way to the end. The first truth waits where I taught you to be patient. And remember this, my darling, your father did not die alone. I love you. I always did. Mother. I read the last sentence again. Your father did not die alone. Not your father had an accident. Not your father lost his balance. Your father did not die alone. I sat on the floor with my mother's old gray coat in my lap, surrounded by boxes of practical clothes. And for the first time in 20 years, the word accident began to crack. And I knew exactly where I had to go. Chapter 2. The Dock Where Patience Began. My mother taught me to be patient on a fishing dock, before the lake became a wound, before my father's name became something adults said softly and briefly. The old wooden dock behind our house was one of the happiest places I knew. On summer evenings, my mother would take me out to the end of it with 2 fishing lines and a tin of bait, and we would sit above the water until the light turned gold. I hated waiting. I wanted the fish to come immediately, when they did not. I wanted to reel the line in, splash my feet, ask questions, go home. My mother would put her hand over mine on the rod and say, "The only thing fishing teaches, Emily, is that the things worth catching come to those who can sit still longest. Be patient. Patience is the one thing no one can take from you." I had not seen that dock in 20 years. The house had been sold after my father died. I assumed time had changed it, because time changes everything it cannot erase. But the house still stood, rented now by strangers who did not know my father had died in the water behind it. And the dock still reached into the lake like an old finger pointing toward the past. I drove out the next morning, 3 hours of highway, then smaller roads, then the narrow lane dropping toward the shore. When the lake appeared between the trees, gray and wide under a low sky, I pulled over and sat in the car until I could breathe. It was beautiful. That felt almost cruel. Some childish part of me wanted the lake to look guilty, to wear its crime on its surface. Instead, it lay still and silver, calm enough to seem innocent. The renters were away for the week. I had called ahead and said I was researching family history. They told me I could walk down to the dock, so I parked by the old house, crossed the wet grass, and stepped onto the boards where my mother had taught me to wait. I searched for nearly an hour, beneath loose boards, along the rails, inside gaps in the old wood. I found nothing at first. Then I remembered being small enough to crawl under the dock, small enough to believe the space beneath it was a cave. I lay flat on my stomach, reached beneath the final support beam, and felt plastic wedged high where 2 pieces of wood met. The box was waterproof, new enough to tell me she had hidden it in the last year or 2 of her life. I sat on the end of the dock and cried before I opened it. My mother, ill and over 60, had lowered herself beneath those beams to hide a box for a daughter who still thought she was cold. Inside was a second letter, an old photograph, a folded sketch of the dock and boathouse, and a smaller paper that had to be the next clue. I read the letter first. "You found it." "Of course you did. I need you to understand the first truth clearly before you look at anything else. I never believed your father went out alone and slipped into the water. I knew it the morning they brought the boat in. I knew it from the way certain people spoke too quickly, from the way certain questions were not asked, from the way grief was used to close a door before anyone had looked behind it. I did not have proof then, only knowledge without a handle. That is a terrible thing to carry. The photograph gives the handle its first shape. Look at the date. Look at the water. Look at the boat. I picked up the photograph. It was faded at the edges. Taken from the shore on a gray day, very much like this one. There was the dock. There was the far line of reeds. There was the little boat my father used to take out in the evenings. There were 2 figures inside it. I stared until my eyes hurt. 2 figures, one seated near the bow, one closer to the stern. The image was too distant to identify faces, but clear enough to undo 20 years of one sentence. He went out alone. I turned the photograph over, on the back, in my mother's handwriting, was the date, the day my father died. A car rolled down the gravel lane behind the house. I heard it before I saw it. A door closed. Then a familiar voice called across the grass. Warm and surprised and pleased. "Emily? Sweetheart? Is that you?" I turned. My Uncle Ray was walking down from the house with his arms open, his gray hair ruffled by the wind, his kind, crinkled smile already in place. Relief hit me first, because love is a reflex before it is a thought. Uncle Ray was here, the man who had always come when something hurt was coming again. And for one weak second, I wanted to run into his arms and let him tell me the past was only the past. Then I remembered the photograph in my hand. Ray hugged me before I could step back. "I heard you might be here," he said. "I was worried. This place is hard enough with company. You should not be here alone." "How did you know I was here?" I asked. He released me and gave a soft little laugh. "The renters mentioned someone had called. Small towns still talk. You know that. They did not know my name." A pause. Tiny. Almost nothing. Then his smile warmed again. "They described you well enough. Your mother's daughter, asking about family history. It was not hard to guess." His eyes flicked to the box by my feet and away again. "What are you doing down here?" I closed the box before he could see inside. "Just saying goodbye." His hand settled on my shoulder. "The past does not help. Emily, it only teaches grief to breathe again. Your mother was not herself near the end. Illness can make people hold on to strange ideas. Whatever she left you, whatever she made you think, let it rest. Let your father rest. Let her rest." It was such a loving thing to say. It was exactly the sort of thing he had been saying to me for 20 years. But for the first time, it did not feel like comfort. It felt like a door being closed. I let him walk me back to the house. I let him follow me home. His headlights steady in my rearview mirror for 3 hours. And all the way back to the city, I thought about 2 figures in a boat, and a man who had known exactly where to find me, and a sentence my mother had sewn into an old coat like a fuse. Your father did not die alone. Chapter 3. The Uncle Who Arrived Too Soon. That night, I wrote down every time my Uncle Ray had been there. Not the obvious things first. Those would have hurt too much. I started with dates, because dates are kinder than feelings when feelings are too large to survive. The day my father died, the day we moved away from the lake, my 12th birthday, the first one after the funeral, my graduation, my first apartment, my engagement, my wedding, my mother's diagnosis, my mother's funeral. The day I found the letter, the day I went back to the dock. Then I added what Ray had said each time. At my father's funeral, when I asked why my mother would not cry in front of me, Ray had said, "Some people go cold when grief eats too much of them." When I was 16 and wanted to ask my mother why we never visited the lake, Ray took me for ice cream and told me some doors only hurt when opened. When I was 21 and found an old photograph of my father in my mother's desk. Ray appeared 2 days later with a box of Robert's things and said, "Do not trouble Helen with questions. She has suffered enough." When I got engaged and cried because my father would never walk me down the aisle, Ray held my hands and said, "Let me stand where he would have stood." On paper, devotion changed shape. Ray had not only loved me, Ray had been stationed beside every locked door of my life, smiling, warm, ready to lead me away from it. The next morning, I called Lydia Shaw, the lawyer who had handled my mother's estate. Lydia was brisk, precise, and impossible to charm. My mother would have trusted that. When I asked whether my mother had left instructions about Ray, Lydia was silent long enough for me to know the answer before she spoke. "Your mother made one request." Lydia said, "If Mr. Raymond Lawson asked what she had left you, I was to say everything was ordinary. No letters, no personal effects, nothing sealed." She was very specific. "Did he ask?" "This morning." I gripped the phone tighter. "This morning?" "Yes." He sounded concerned. He asked whether grief had made you fixate on anything unhealthy. He asked whether Helen had left what he called difficult material. Difficult material. The phrase felt like a fingerprint pressed onto glass. Lydia lowered her voice. "Emily, your mother also left a sealed envelope in my care. She said to give it to you only after you had found the first two things, I assume, from your call. That you have..." I drove to Lydia's office that afternoon. She gave me a cream envelope with my mother's handwriting on the front. "Emily," after the doc. Inside was a single page. "You will be tempted now to believe the person who has always comforted you. That is why I had to wait until you found the photograph first. Suspicion without proof can be talked out of you. Proof can only be explained away if you let someone else tell you what it means. Do not let anyone tell you what you have seen. Find the man who wrote the ending he never believed. He signed his name to a lie to keep his life intact. He has carried it almost as long as I have." At the bottom, my mother had written one more line. "His name is in the only newspaper I ever kept." I remembered it at once. A yellowed local newspaper folded at the bottom of a drawer. I had nearly thrown it away because grief makes small things look meaningless until they become the center of everything. Back at my apartment, I opened the paper for the first time as an adult. The article was about my father, the drowning, the accident. It was short, respectful, thin. It called him a beloved local businessman. It said the family requested privacy. It said the case had been determined to be a tragic accident after a brief investigation. At the end of the article, the officer who handled the case was named Detective Frank Mercer. My phone rang before I could write it down. Ray. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the message appeared. I played it with my notebook open in front of me. "Emily, sweetheart, it is me. I know losing your mother can stir up all sorts of things. Did she leave you anything strange? Anything that upset you? You know Helen was not always well, especially near the end. Call me before you do anything with whatever she gave you. I only want to protect you." I played the message twice. Then I wrote another line on the page. Ray knew there was something to ask about before I told him there was anything to ask about. Chapter 4. Emily Builds the Board. By midnight, my apartment wall had become something between a family tree and a crime board. I did not have red string, and for some reason that made it feel more serious. I used painter's tape, index cards, photocopies, sticky notes, and the kind of careful handwriting I had inherited from my mother without wanting to. At the top, I wrote my father's name, Robert Lawson. under it. I wrote 3 questions. Who was in the boat? Why did the report say he was alone? Who benefited from everyone believing accident? Then I made columns: motive, opportunity, cover-up, witnesses, proof, unknown. At first, most of the wall belonged to unknown. That was honest. And honesty steadied me. I had the photograph of 2 figures in the boat. I had my mother's statement that she never believed the accident. I had Ray appearing too quickly at the lake. I had Lydia's statement that Ray asked about difficult material. I had a detective's name. I had Ray's voicemail framing my mother as unstable. It was not proof. Not yet. But it was no longer grief either. It had structure. The strangest thing happened as I worked. My panic became useful. Every time fear rose in me, I gave it a task. If Ray knew I went to the dock, how? The renters? A neighbor? Someone watching the property? If Ray asked Lydia about my inheritance the same morning I called her, did Lydia mention me to anyone? No, she would not. If Ray had been so sure my mother was not well, why had he needed to ask whether she left me something? If he truly believed her grief was harmless, why was he already trying to control the meaning of whatever I found? By 2 a.m, I had made a smaller card with 1 sentence on it. Ray reacts to information before he should have it. That card frightened me more than the photograph. A photograph can be explained. A man can say he happened to be near the lake, happened to hear from the renters, happened to worry. But a pattern of reacting too early means access, attention, surveillance of some kind. Even if only social, Ray did not need cameras to watch me. He had spent 20 years building himself into the person everyone would call when Emily Lawson seemed troubled. I called Lydia again the next morning and asked a question that made her go silent. Did anyone call you before Ray did? Anyone asking whether I had contacted you? No, she said, but Ray called me from the courthouse parking lot. I noticed because I could hear the bells. He was already in town. Why would he be in town? That, Lydia said, is a question I cannot answer. I checked the timestamps. My call to Lydia had been at 9:26. Ray's call to Lydia had been at 10:11. The courthouse was 20 minutes from the lake road and 5 minutes from Lydia's office. He had not called from home. He had already been nearby. I wrote it down. Then I did something I am still proud of. I made copies of everything. Not 1 copy, 3. I scanned the letters, the photograph, my notes, Lydia's envelope, Ray's voicemail. I uploaded them to a secure cloud folder and sent access to a new email address Ray did not know existed. I placed 1 paper copy in my office drawer at work, 1 with Lydia, and 1 in a locked case in the trunk of my car. I kept the originals in a bag that did not leave my side. My mother had hidden proof in one place because she had no choice. I had choices. That afternoon, Ray came by with soup. It was such a Ray thing to do. A container of chicken soup from the deli I liked, a paper bag with bread. His face creased with concern. I nearly softened. That was the danger of him. He knew the exact shape of comfort. "You are not eating," he said, stepping inside before I fully invited him. "I can always tell." "Can you?" He smiled. "I have known you since you were born, sweetheart." His eyes moved once around the room. The wall was clear. I had taken everything down before opening the door, but the tape marks remained faintly visible above my desk. His gaze paused there for less than a second. "You have been busy," he said. "Cleaning?" "Your mother cleaned when she was upset, too." His voice softened. It did not help her. I looked at him then. Really looked. Ray was a master of soft sentences that carried sharp things inside them. "Your mother cleaned when she was upset." It did not help her. Translation: You are becoming like Helen. Translation: Helen was unstable. Translation: Trust me before you become her. I thanked him for the soup. I let him talk. I let him tell me I should take a break from sorting my mother's things. I let him mention, casually, that old papers have a way of making grief look like evidence. I let him kiss my forehead at the door. When he left, I checked my desk. The top drawer was open by half an inch. The drawer I had locked before he arrived. Chapter 5. The Detective Who Signed a Lie. Frank Mercer lived in a small house 2 towns over from the lake, on a street with trimmed hedges and quiet cars. It took me 3 days to find him. He had retired years ago. When he opened the door and I told him my name, he did not ask who Robert Lawson was. His face simply went still, as if a sound had finally reached him from far away. I wondered if someone would come, he said. His house smelled of tea, dust, and old paper. He moved slowly, but his eyes were sharp. He made tea with the care of a man who had lived alone long enough to turn small routines into protection. Then he sat across from me and waited. I did not make it easy for him. My mother had taught me patience, but patience is not softness. If you never believed it, I said, why did you sign it? Frank looked down at his hands. Because I was younger than I am now, and more afraid than I should have been. Because believing a thing and proving it are different animals. Because there was pressure to close it quickly. Because my superiors wanted a clean accident instead of a messy suspicion with no body of proof strong enough to carry it. Because I had a wife, 2 children, a mortgage, and not enough courage. He looked up. I signed a report I did not believe. Miss Lawson, I have not had a peaceful night since. What did not fit? Several things. Your father knew the water. He was not careless in that boat. The night was calm, not perfectly clear, but calm enough. The report made more of the conditions than it should have. There were 2 fresh sets of marks near the launch, as if 2 people had pushed the boat out. One could be your father. The other was never properly accounted for. There was also a clean cut in one of the old tie lines, though by the time I saw it, I had been told not to turn every worn rope into a conspiracy. A clean cut? A rope that fails from age phrase. This one had a sharp end. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe someone cut an old rope earlier and left it. But with everything else, it bothered me. Still does. What else? The boathouse key, he said. The words made me sit straighter. The old boathouse at the shore end of your family property. Your father kept spare oars, fuel, tools, lines. According to the statement, the key was hanging in the kitchen the morning after he died. But Caleb Ward, the man who looked after boats along that shore, told me Ray had asked about that key earlier in the week, said he needed to borrow a tool. Ray was questioned? Lightly. Too lightly. He said he had been out of town that evening. There were people who claimed to have seen him elsewhere earlier in the day, and after a while the question was allowed to die. I let it die. That is on me. I took the photograph from my bag and placed it on his table. The lake, the boat, 2 figures, the date. Frank Mercer looked at it for a long time. The skin around his eyes tightened. Your mother had this? She hid it for me. Of course she did. He said softly. She came to me once, about a year after Robert died. She brought small things, a memory, a receipt, a suspicion she would not name out loud. She begged me to reopen it. And you did not? No. He accepted the blow without flinching. I told her I could not. The case was closed. And what she had then was not enough. I have hated myself for that sentence longer than you have been an adult. Who did she suspect? He rubbed a hand over his face. She never said his name. She was too frightened. But she said one thing I never forgot. She said, "The trouble is that the only person who could have done it is the only person my daughter has left to love." Ray's name filled the room without either of us saying it. Frank stood and took an old file box from a cabinet. "I kept copies," he said. "Notes. Mostly names. The parts that bothered me. If you are going to follow what your mother left, you need to understand something. If Helen was right, then Ray has not merely been loving you for 20 years. He has been managing you. There is a difference, and it is dangerous." I left Frank's house with photocopied notes and 2 new names: Caleb Ward, the boatman who remembered the key; Martha Klein, the neighbor who saw Ray visiting my mother late at night after my father died. As I drove back to the city, my phone buzzed. "Ray, I heard you drove out again. Sweetheart, I wish you would let me help. Family should not have to carry old grief alone." I pulled over and sat very still. I had not told him I was leaving the city. Chapter 6. The Boatman and the Cut Rope. Caleb Ward met me at the marina with the face of a man who had spent 20 years hoping no one would remember his name. He was 70 now, tall and bent, with hands made strong by weather and rope. Frank Mercer came with me, and Caleb looked relieved when he saw him, as if guilt prefers witnesses to strangers. "I remember the key," Caleb said, before we had even sat down. "That is what Helen asked me about too. She came here years ago with a notebook and eyes that did not blink enough. She wanted to know whether Ray had borrowed it. I told her yes. Then I told myself it did not matter. I have been telling myself that ever since." Caleb had looked after boats along that shore for half his life. The week before Robert died, Ray came to him asking where the spare boathouse key was kept. Said he needed to borrow a tool Robert had stored there. Caleb pointed him to the hook in the mudroom, because Ray was family and family, in a lake town, has access to things strangers do not. That was not all. The afternoon before the drowning, Caleb saw Ray near the launch, checking lines and looking toward the house. Ray told him Robert wanted him to inspect a worn tie rope. Caleb thought nothing of it until the next morning, when one of the old ropes showed a clean cut. "Could that have caused the accident?" I asked. Caleb shook his head. "Not by itself. That is what bothered me. People wanted one thing to explain everything: a storm, a slip, a rope. But the rope was not an explanation. It was preparation. Someone had been handling the boat who wanted us all looking at worn equipment instead of people. Preparation. The word landed in my notebook like a weight. Caleb also remembered the morning after, before the boat was found, before the official search had even gathered properly. Ray came down to the shore. He said he was looking for his brother, but he did not go to the water first. He went to the boathouse. Why would that matter? Caleb looked out over the slips. If your brother is missing on a lake, you run to the lake, unless you are afraid of what you left in the boathouse. Frank said nothing. The silence between the 2 old men was full of the things they had failed to do when they were younger. I asked Caleb about the weather. He snorted softly. Calm. Cold. Yes. Dark. Yes. But calm. No sudden squall. No storm strong enough to make Robert Lawson lose himself. Robert knew that water, like a man, knows the hallway of his own house. So why did the report make the weather sound worse? Because weather cannot sue you for being blamed, Caleb said. He gave me a statement in writing. His hand shook while he signed it. Then he told me one more thing. Years after the funeral, He saw my mother near a storage facility on the edge of town, carrying plastic document boxes. When she saw him, she raised a finger to her lips. He never told anyone. I added the storage facility to the board in my mind. On the drive back, I stopped near the old lake road and walked a few yards down toward the water. I wanted to see the launch again now that it was no longer only a place in my childhood. The mud had hardened near the edge. The boathouse leaned to one side, half swallowed by ivy. The dock stretched out beyond it. Everything looked smaller than memory, and somehow more dangerous. My phone buzzed. A photograph from Ray. It was me at 12, holding a birthday gift. Ray beside me with his arm around my shoulders. Under it, he had written, "You had already lost so much then. I only ever wanted you to feel loved." I stared at the picture until the child in it seemed like someone else. Then another message appeared. "Do not let Helen's sadness rewrite what was real between us." For the first time, Ray did not sound worried. He sounded like someone protecting property. Chapter 7. The Woman Next Door. Martha Klein still lived near the old lake road in a narrow house full of plants, framed grandchildren, and the smell of lavender. I remembered her only in fragments from childhood. Soup in a blue bowl, a cardigan with pearl buttons, a voice calling to my mother over the fence. When I introduced myself, she pressed both hands to her mouth and said, "Emily Lawson. My goodness, you have your mother's eyes." No one had ever told me that before. I had to look away. Martha did not pretend not to know why I had come. Old women, I was learning, often know exactly which doors in a house have been locked and why. She made coffee, sat across from me, and waited until I asked about Ray. "Your uncle came around often after Robert died," she said. "Everyone thought he was being kind. Some part of him may even have liked being thought kind. But I did not like the way your mother looked after his visits. He came after dark. Always after dark. He never shouted. That was what made it worse. Men who shout let the walls testify. Men like Ray leave silence behind them and make the woman wonder whether she imagined the wound." "What did he say?" "Pieces. Not enough. I thought then, enough. I think now." Once I heard him say, "Emily needs warmth. Helen, if you try to take that from her, she will hate you for it." Another time he said, "Grief can make a person cruel. Do not make people choose between the grieving widow and the uncle who shows up." The words entered me slowly, like cold water. Martha reached across the table. "Your mother changed after those visits. She would hold herself farther from you. I used to think grief had made her hard. Now I think she was afraid softness would give him a place to press." I told Martha about the photograph. Not all of it, but enough. She nodded as if an old suspicion had been given shape. "There was another woman," she said, "Evelyn Price. She worked for Lawson Brothers, the company your father and Ray ran together. Evelyn came to your house once before Robert died. Your mother walked her to the car, and both of them looked frightened. A month later, Evelyn was gone. People said she had made mistakes with the accounts. Your father did not believe that. I heard him through the kitchen window tell Helen, 'Evelyn is careful. If there is a hole in the accounts, she did not make it.' Evelyn Price. Another name? Another door?" Before I left, Martha took a small envelope from a drawer. "Your mother gave this to me the year before she died. She said if you came asking, I should give it to you. If you did not come, I should burn it after I heard of her passing. I could not burn it. Forgive me." Inside was a note from my mother. Martha saw what I could not write down then. Trust her memory. But do not ask her to carry more than she already has. The next piece is with the woman Ray called careless, because she was careful. Find Evelyn. On the back, one more line. When a man controls the warm room, the cold hallway becomes the only place to hide. I did not understand it fully then. As I stepped outside, a dark sedan idled across the street. I could not see the driver through the reflection on the windshield. For 1 second, I thought I saw Ray's hand on the steering wheel, the signet ring he had worn my whole life. Then the car pulled away. Martha stood behind me in the doorway. He still watches, she said softly. I turned to her. She looked suddenly very old. Your mother used to say that, not to me, to herself. I think he still watches. By the time I got home, Ray had left another voicemail. Emily, this is becoming unhealthy. Your mother spent years seeing enemies where there were none. I will not stand by and watch her do that to you from the grave. I saved the message. Then I wrote Evelyn Price's name on the board. Ray did not want me to find the accounts, which meant the accounts mattered. Chapter 8. The Ledger and the Missing Money. Evelyn Price lived above a bakery 4 towns away. In an apartment so neat, it made me think of my mother before she was sick. She was small, silver-haired, and precise, with eyes that assessed before they trusted. She opened the door only after checking the peephole twice. You look like Robert, she said. Everyone kept giving me pieces of my parents, as if I had been wearing them all my life without knowing. Evelyn did not offer tea. She sat me at her kitchen table, opened a locked metal file box, and removed a ledger wrapped in brown paper. I worked for Lawson Brothers for 9 years. She said, your father handled clients and contracts. Ray handled expansion and what he liked to call opportunities. Robert trusted him because Ray was his brother. That was Robert's weakness and his virtue. He believed blood should make a man better than he was. The ledger was full of columns I did not understand at first. Evelyn understood them too well. She explained slowly, patiently, the way a good teacher explains a crime without calling it one too soon. Small withdrawals, vendor payments routed through suppliers that barely existed, loans taken against equipment, money moved out and replaced just long enough to hide the hole. Then moved again. It was not one theft. It was a structure of theft. A room built out of little missing pieces. Ray, I asked, though I already knew. Evelyn nodded. Ray had debts. Gambling. Mostly. Later I suspected men with harder methods were involved. They came to the office once, wearing good coats and bad eyes. After that, money moved faster. I warned your father something was wrong. Robert began checking the books himself. A week later, Ray told me I had made errors and could resign quietly or be accused of incompetence. I resigned. My husband was ill. I could not afford a public fight. Why did you keep the ledger? Because careful women keep copies when careless men call them careless. Her smile was small and bitter. Your mother came to me after Robert died. She was not surprised when I showed her. She had already guessed more than I knew. She asked me to keep quiet until she could protect you. I thought she meant for a year or 2. I did not know she meant 20. Evelyn gave me copies of the ledger and a photocopy of a memo written in my father's hand. It was short, dated 9 days before he died. Ray, I have gone through the supplier payments again. We need to talk privately. I do not want lawyers involved unless there is no other way. You are my brother. I am giving you the chance to explain this to me before anyone else sees it. I read it once. Then again, my father had found the theft. He had given Ray a chance. A good man gives the person he loves a chance. Evelyn said quietly. A frightened man uses that chance to decide how much the good man knows. I asked whether she could prove Ray was at the lake. Evelyn shook her head. Motive is not presence. Helen knew that. It is why she could not move. Before I left, Evelyn gave me something else. A photocopy of a receipt from a petrol station near the lake, dated the afternoon my father died. The signature was smudged, but the card number belonged to an account Evelyn had traced to Ray's personal expenses. Ray had said he was out of town in the opposite direction. It does not prove he was on the boat, Evelyn said, but it proves he lied about where he was. When I got back to my mother's apartment, I knew immediately someone had been inside. Nothing was thrown around. That would have been too honest. The place looked almost exactly as I had left it, but not quite. A drawer stood open by a finger's width. The box of sewing things had moved from the table to the shelf. One stack of coats had been refolded badly, sleeves tucked in the wrong direction. Whoever searched the apartment had known better than to make it look like a search, but had not known my mother well enough to imitate her order. My phone rang. Ray. I answered. Sweetheart, he said warmly. I was nearby and thought I might stop in, but you were not home. The door seemed loose, so I checked the place. I worry about you being alone with all your mother's things. What were you looking for? A soft laugh. Emily, listen to yourself. This is what I was afraid of. Helen's sadness is getting into your head. There it was. Concern sharpened into a blade. Maybe you are right, I said quietly. Of course I am. He said, let me help you let this go. After the call ended, I scanned every page Evelyn had given me and sent copies to Lydia, to Frank, and to the hidden email account. Then I removed the originals from my apartment. My mother had lived with Ray's reach for 20 years. I was beginning to feel its length. Chapter 9. The Birthday Box. The next clue was in the birthday I never opened. When I was 12, the first birthday after my father died. My mother gave me a small wooden box. It was plain, polished, and locked, with a little brass key taped inside a birthday card. She told me it held some of my father's things, and that I did not have to open it until I was grown. Then she added, in a voice I remembered now as too careful, never force it. Emily, some things open only when you are ready. I had carried that box through apartments, dorm rooms, my first house, my marriage, and my divorce. I had never opened it. At 12, I was afraid grief would come out of it. At 20, I was afraid disappointment would. At 31, I told myself I had misplaced the key. But my mother had known me better than I knew myself. She had known I would keep it. She had known I would wait. The key was still taped inside the old birthday card. Inside the box were ordinary treasures first. My father's watch, a pocket knife with a worn handle, a photograph of him holding me as a baby, his smile broad and unguarded. I touched that photograph for a long time. Then I noticed the bottom of the box sounded wrong when I set the watch back down. Hollow. There was a false panel beneath the velvet lining. I found the catch with a sewing needle. Underneath was an envelope so thick it barely fit. Inside were photographs of Ray. Not dramatic photographs. Not the kind anyone would call evidence at first glance. Ray standing outside my school at pickup. Ray watching from the back of a room at my graduation reception. Ray speaking to my mother on her porch. Ray outside the house where I lived in my 20s. Ray at my wedding, smiling with one hand over mine. Dates on the back of each one. Notes in my mother's handwriting. He came after Emily asked about the lake. He brought a gift after she found Robert's photograph. He told her grief makes people cruel. He watches her to be sure she never suspects. That last sentence appeared again and again. He watches her to be sure she never suspects. He watches her to be sure she never suspects. He watches her to be sure she never suspects. At first I felt sick. Then I felt something worse than sickness. Recognition. My whole life rearranged around that sentence. Ray had not simply filled the space my father left. He had occupied it. He had made himself necessary. He had become the soft voice I ran to when my mother's silence hurt. And then he had used that softness to turn me away from her every time I came close to the right question. Near the bottom was a photograph from my wedding. Ray and I at the end of the aisle, his face wet with tears. Mine turned toward him in gratitude. On the back, my mother had written, "He stood where Robert should have stood and made her love him for it. I let him, because if I tried to stop him, she would hate me more than she already did. Forgive me. Emily, I chose the thing I thought would hurt you least." I sat on the floor with the box open beside me and wept in a way I had not wept at my mother's funeral. At the funeral, I had still thought I was grieving a woman who never let me in. Now I was beginning to grieve a woman who had locked herself outside of her own daughter's love so her daughter would not be left with no warmth at all. At the bottom of the envelope was a note. C.W. knows about the Boathouse key. He is frightened, but not cruel. Find him after you understand Ray, not before. Caleb Ward. I had already found him. My mother had arranged her path, so that even if I took the doors in a different order, the lock still matched. Someone knocked on my apartment door. "Emily?" Ray's voice came through the wood. "Sweetheart, I know you are home. I brought something of your father's. I thought you might need family tonight." Need family tonight. The words chilled me because they were almost right. He had always known when I was weakest. The birthday after my father died, the graduation without my mother's warmth, the wedding without my father's arm, and now this. The night I opened the birthday box. I slid the photographs into a folder, placed the old box in plain sight with only the watch and pocket knife inside, and opened the door. Ray stood there holding a framed photograph of my father and me. His smile trembled with concern. "You have been distant," he said. "I was worried. You should not be alone with all this." I looked at the man who had walked me down the aisle. I looked at his warm hands, his kind eyes, the grief he wore like a coat tailored to my needs. "You are right," I said. "I do need family." His face softened. "I just need to understand which family I have left." For the first time in my life, Ray's smile did not reach his eyes. Chapter 10. The First Test. My mother had left me a trail, but for the first time, I stepped off it on purpose. Until then, I had followed her clues like a child following footprints in snow. Coat, Doc, Lydia, Frank, Caleb, Martha, Evelyn, birthday box. Each clue opened the next door. But Ray was not a door. Ray moved. He listened, adjusted, appeared. My mother had known that. Frank had warned me. Martha had seen it. Evelyn had locked her door before opening it. Ray did not simply hide from the truth. He managed the people who approached it. If I wanted to understand him, I had to give him something false to manage. I called him the morning after he came to my door. I made my voice sound tired. "Maybe you were right." I said, "Maybe Mom left me chasing ghosts. There is one place I think she wanted me to check. But honestly, I do not know if I can do it anymore." "Where?" Ray asked too quickly, then softened. "I only mean, perhaps I can help." "The old church archive." I said, "I found a note. It mentioned a baptism record and something about the north wall. There was no old church clue, no baptism record, no north wall. I chose the place because it was plausible enough to matter and meaningless enough to cost me nothing. Ray sighed. Your mother had a way of turning ordinary things into burdens. Promise me you will not go alone. I promised nothing. Then I called Frank. By that evening, a friend of Frank's who still knew the town clerk had checked the archive security camera. Ray had appeared just after closing. He did not go inside. He stood across the street for 11 minutes, watching the door, then made a phone call and left. He took the bait. Frank said, "No," I said, "he watched the bait. That is what he does." The result should have frightened me. It did. But beneath the fear was something colder and steadier. Ray could still be tested. Ray could still make mistakes. My mother had not left me a straight road because she thought I was helpless. She had left me enough road to learn how to walk without her. I began keeping a second board. The first was the case. The second was Ray. It had only 3 columns. What he knows, how he could know it, what he does next. The old church test gave me 1 line. Ray monitors information, but does not always know whether it is true. That mattered. A man who knows everything cannot be baited. A man who fears what he does not know can... 2 days later, Ray came by again with groceries I had not asked for. He sat at my kitchen table as if he still belonged there. I let him talk about my mother, about grief, about how lonely people build stories to survive pain. Then I took out a copy of the lake photograph. Not the original. Never the original. I placed it on the table far enough away that he could see the boat but not the date on the back. I found this. I said, I think it was near the North Reeds. Ray looked at it. His face did not change. South. He said. I said nothing. He blinked. I mean, if that is the old dock, the reeds in the photograph would be south of the launch. I spent time there too. Sweetheart, we all knew that lake. All true, all reasonable, all too quick. How did you know this was the day Dad died? The question dropped between us. Ray looked at me as if I had wounded him. Because you are showing it to me now. Emily. Because grief makes everything about that day. Because you are my brother's daughter, and I know how your mind must be hurting. Do not turn my love into suspicion because Helen left you frightened. There it was again. Helen as illness. Helen as poison. Helen as the cold one. I folded the photograph and put it away. That night, Ray left a voicemail. For the first time. His voice was not entirely warm. Family does not investigate family. Emily, it remembers. It forgives. It lets the dead rest. Your mother never understood that. I hope you will. I saved it in 3 places. Then I wrote another line on the second board. Ray knows the lake too well to pretend distance from that night. Chapter 11. The Lie About the South Reeds. The South Reeds became the first mistake I could hold in my hand. A person can know a place well. Ray was right about that. He had grown up near the lake. He had fished there with my father. He had come to cookouts, repairs, family days, on its own. Correcting north to south meant little. But my mother's trail had taught me something about clues. A clue is not always a key. Sometimes it is a question that forces another door to reveal whether it is locked. I went back to Frank with the detail. He listened, then pulled out the old map from his file. The official report said the boat was found near the east reed bed. A vague description, written by someone who wanted geography to be as soft as possible. But in Frank's handwritten notes, there was a sketch. The boat had been found closer to the southern channel, where the reeds grew thick enough to conceal someone leaving the water and cutting behind the boathouse without crossing the open lawn. "Who knew that?" I asked. "Anyone at the search." Frank said, "Family, police, Caleb, maybe neighbors. But if Ray was supposedly out of town until after the search began, he should not have corrected you that quickly from memory." I called Caleb. He remembered the Southern Channel, too. More than that, he remembered Ray arriving that morning wearing different shoes than he usually wore. Caleb had thought it odd because Ray was always polished, always neat. And that morning his shoes were old work boots. Later, at the house, Ray wore dress shoes. At the time, Caleb assumed he changed because of mud. Where would he have changed? Caleb was quiet, the boathouse. Frank and I drove back to the old property with the current renter's permission. We did not search deeply. Not yet. But we stood behind the boathouse and looked toward the southern reeds. The route was almost invisible from the dock. A person could come from the water, stay low, reach the boathouse, change, and return to the house as if he had just arrived by road. The caseboard in my mind shifted. Opportunity was no longer a blank column. That evening, I found a note in my mailbox. No envelope, just a folded sheet of paper. The handwriting was Ray's. "Emily, I am trying very hard to be patient with this because I know grief is not rational. But you are hurting yourself and dishonoring the people who loved you. Your mother's bitterness should not become your inheritance. Call me." There was no sweetheart, no warmth, just control without its ribbon. I took the note to Lydia. She read it once and said, "Keep this." Then she took out an envelope from her desk. "Your mother gave me one more item to hold," she said. "She instructed me not to give it to you until you had evidence that Ray was actively trying to stop you. Not merely comfort you. I think we are there." Inside was a small cassette recorder and a note. "This is not the final proof." My mother had written, "It is only the sound of the cage he built. Listen when you are ready to understand why I waited." I waited until I got home. Then I pressed play. My mother's voice came through, weak but steady. "Emily, if you are hearing this, then Ray has stopped sounding like a comfort and started sounding like a warning. That means you are close enough for him to be afraid. You must understand something before you go further. Fear does not always arrive as a raised hand. Sometimes it arrives as a familiar voice saying, 'She will never believe you.' Sometimes it says, 'I am the one who holds her when she cries.' Sometimes it says, 'You are the cold one now.' Helen. I made sure of that." I covered my mouth. My mother continued, "He told me that if I accused him, you would choose him. He told me grief had already made me strange in your eyes. He told me he would not need to turn you against me, because I was doing it myself. And God forgive me. Emily." I believed him. Not because I thought you weak, because you were a child, because he had made himself warm and I had become the wall. I chose the wall. I thought it was the only way to keep you from the fire. The tape clicked off. I sat in the dark with my mother's voice still in the room. For the first time, I understood that Ray had not only taken my father, he had taken my mother from me while she was still alive. You too. Chapter 12. What Robert Found. The storage unit stood on the edge of the lake town, behind a chain-link fence and a row of units painted the color of old bone. Helen had rented it under her maiden name and paid 20 years in advance in cash. The manager. After calls from Lydia and Frank, and more paperwork than grief should ever require, opened the gate and let me in. Unit 17 smelled of dust, plastic, and patience. Inside were shelves of document boxes. Not chaos, not obsession. Order. My mother had labeled everything by year, by person, by place. Robert, Ray, Evelyn, Caleb, Martha, Mercer, Emily. That last one made me pause. I did not open it first. I was afraid of what my own name might mean in a room like that. The Robert boxes were the heart of the case. My father's handwriting was larger than my mother's, more hurried, alive in a way that made grief rush up so fast I had to grip the shelf. He had found the theft. Page after page showed him circling discrepancies, tracing payments, writing Ray in the margins, as if the name hurt too much to write without a question mark. There were copies of invoices Evelyn had flagged, notes about supplier payments, a list of debts, a page of phone numbers, a receipt from a petrol station near the lake, the same one Evelyn had copied, folded into a page where my father had written, "If Ray was in Brookfield Thursday, why did he say he was in Marlow?" My father had suspected more than I realized. The final page stopped me. I have to confront Ray. I have to give him the chance to explain. He is my brother. There has to be an explanation. I will talk to him this week. Just the two of us. Away from everyone. I will give him the chance to make it right. Just the two of us. Away from everyone. I saw it then. Not as a theory. Not as my mother's grief. Not as Ray's warmth cracking at the edges. I saw the story of that last evening. My father discovering the theft. My father still loving his brother. My father choosing privacy because he thought shame could be handled gently if no one else saw it. The lake would have seemed private, familiar, safe. A place two brothers could talk without wives, employees, creditors, police. A place where a good man thought goodness could still be called out of someone who shared his blood. And Ray had gone. Not to explain, not to make it right. To survive? In the Emily box, I found the full cost of that survival. Birthday cards, school programs, photographs of Ray with me, notes in my mother's hand tracking every time Ray appeared after I asked a question about my father. At the bottom was a page I could barely read through tears. I wanted to tell her today. She asked why Robert liked the lake at sunset. I almost told her he went there because he believed stillness helped him think. I almost told her he took Ray there because he loved him. Then Ray arrived with a kite and she ran to him. I hated him for making her happy. I hated myself for being grateful she had happiness. Both things were true, and I have lived too long in the space between them. That was the room my mother had lived in. Not coldness, contradiction, loving me enough to hate the warmth I took from Ray, and fearing that if she removed it, I would be left with nothing. The last box was marked HL Final. Inside was a folded riddle, a sketch of the boathouse, and a note. The last truth waits where patience began, but not beneath the dock. Look where boats sleep. Do not go alone. From here. He will know you are close. He has always known when someone gets close. It is how he has stayed free. My phone buzzed on the concrete floor. Ray? Emily, sweetheart. The message read, "I have not heard from you. I am worried. Where are you?" I looked around at 20 years of my mother's evidence. Then I called Frank Mercer. Chapter 13. What Helen Survived. Frank did not let me go to the boathouse that night. For once. I did not argue. Every nerve in my body wanted to drive to the lake, tear up every stone, every board, every inch of that rotting structure until I found what my mother had left. But impatience was how Ray survived. He counted on people rushing toward pain. He counted on grief making them sloppy. My mother had stayed patient for 20 years. I could survive one more night. Frank called Inspector Adaze Brandt from the Regional Cold Case Unit. She arrived at Lydia's office the next morning in a dark coat. Her hair pulled back, her expression calm enough to make the whole room feel more orderly. She was not warm, and I was grateful for it. Warmth, by then, had become something I no longer trusted automatically. Brant read for 4 hours. Frank's notes, Evelyn's ledger, Caleb's statement, Martha's memory, Lydia's envelopes, my father's papers, my mother's recordings, Ray's voicemails, my boards. She asked questions like a surgeon making incisions, precise, necessary, without apology. When she finished, she closed the last folder and looked at me. "Your mother built a case," she said. The words hit harder than sympathy would have. A real case? A flawed one, because she was not an investigator and because she was isolated. But yes, motive, pattern, opportunity indicators, witness memory, documentary support, behavioral evidence. What she lacked was the final piece that connected Ray directly to what happened on the water, and a way to move without him discrediting her. He would have called her unstable, I said. Brant nodded. He already did. From what I see, and because she was grieving. Because the original report said accident. Because he had cultivated warmth with you and credibility with others. It might have worked. That does not mean she was weak. It means she understood the terrain. The terrain? My mother's life reduced to a battlefield map. I told Brant about the glass, about growing up on the cold side of it, about Ray walking me down the aisle, about hating my mother for not being the one who held me when I cried. I expected Brant to say something gentle. She did not. Your mother understood leverage. She said, Ray's leverage was you. I looked away. That is the part people misunderstand about threats. Brant continued. The most effective ones do not always sound like threats. Sometimes they sound like, your daughter will choose me. Sometimes they sound like, I am the one she trusts. Sometimes they sound like, if you speak, I will make your love look like madness. For a woman who had already lost her husband, that may have been enough to silence her. It silenced the room too. I thought of my mother standing on that porch while Ray spoke softly. I thought of every time I had chosen him without knowing I was being used as a weapon. I thought of the old coat, the hidden letters, the false bottom in the birthday box. My mother had been fighting a war in a house where I thought she had simply stopped trying. What do we do? I asked. Brant slid the final riddle toward the center of the table. We assume the boathouse contains something important. We also assume Ray is watching closely enough to know when you are near the end, if you go alone. He may arrive before you or after you. Either is unacceptable, so we go first. First? Tonight, with permission from the current property owners and, if needed, an emergency order, we remove whatever is there, we document it. Then we decide whether Ray can be made to show us something more. Frank looked at her. A decoy. Brant nodded. If Mr. Lawson has kept himself safe by getting to things before anyone else can, then we give him something to try to get to. The plan formed slowly and cleanly. Brant would take a small team to the boathouse that night. Frank would come because he knew the old case. I would come because the riddle was written for me. If proof was there, it would leave with Brant. Then I would call Ray and pretend I was tired, uncertain, ready to let him help me end it. What if he does not come? I asked. Then we proceed with what we have. What if he does? Then we learn whether he comes for you or for the box. That evening, I called Ray. I made my voice small, tired, almost ashamed. Maybe you were right. I said, maybe Mom was sick. Maybe she left me chasing grief because she could not let Dad go. There is one last place she wanted me to check. The boathouse. I do not think I can do it alone. Come with me tomorrow morning. Help me end this. Ray was silent for half a breath. Of course, sweetheart, he said. Of course. I will help you put this to rest. He sounded warm again. That was how I knew he was afraid. Chapter 14, The Decoy Box. We went to the boathouse that night under a sky with no stars. Inspector Brandt had secured permission from the current owners and brought 2 officers from the cold case unit. Both quiet, both careful. Frank Mercer came too. Older and slower than the others, but steadier than I had ever seen him. I think some part of him had been waiting 20 years to walk back to that lake and do one thing correctly. The boathouse stood at the shore end of the dock, half collapsed, smelling of damp wood, old rope, and time. The final riddle said to look where boats sleep. The sketch from the storage unit pointed to the foundation, but not where I expected, not under the floor, not behind the shelves. A loose stone near the back wall, low enough that a child playing hide-and-seek might once have touched it. I knew which stone before I reached it. Memory is strange that way. I saw my small hand pushing at it decades earlier, my mother laughing softly behind me, telling me not all hiding places want to be found at once. I pressed. The stone shifted. Behind it was a waterproof box. Brandt photographed everything before she touched it. Then, gloved. She lifted the box free and set it on a clean evidence cloth. Inside was an old recording device, wrapped in plastic, and a final letter from my mother. I got it at the end. She wrote, "After all those years, he came to see me when he heard I was dying. He could not help himself. He wanted to be sure, even then, that I had never told you, that I would take it to the grave, and in his relief, in his certainty that I was finished and harmless. He spoke plainly for the first time in 20 years. I had carried this recorder for years, waiting for the moment he would let his guard down. A dying woman is no longer a threat." He thought. He was wrong. A dying woman who has been patient for 20 years is the most dangerous thing in the world. I had to stop reading. Frank looked away. Brandt took the recorder. When the sound came through, thin with age but clear enough, the boathouse seemed to shrink around us. Ray's voice filled the room. Warm, even then, warm as birthdays, warm as wedding aisles, warm as the hand that had held mine in all the rooms where my father should have been. "Helen, you should stop this." His recorded voice said, "Emily loves me. She always has. Robert should have listened. He should not have dragged me out on that lake and told me he would ruin everything over money that could have been replaced. He was my brother, yes, but he was going to destroy me. A man has a right to survive, and Emily survived too. Because of me. I stayed. I made sure she never had to know what her father forced me to do. Do not look at me like that. You stayed quiet because you knew the truth. She would have chosen me. She still would, if I asked her to." The recording went on, not a dramatic confession shouted into the dark. Something worse. A man speaking to a dying woman he believed powerless, rewriting betrayal as necessity, manipulation as mercy, and a child's love as evidence that he deserved to win. When it ended, no one spoke for a long moment. Then Brandt said, "With this and the rest, we can reopen the case now." But she still set the decoy. The real box left with Brandt, in the space behind the stone. The team placed another waterproof box, similar enough to pass at a glance. Inside were harmless papers, a blank recorder, and one copied note with just enough of my mother's handwriting to make Ray think he had found what mattered. "Why still do this?" I asked Brandt. "Because a confession from 20 years later helps explain the past." She said, "But what he does now helps prove consciousness of guilt in the present." "Also," she added, looking toward the dark lake, "your mother did not only leave you proof, She left you his pattern. We should let the pattern finish speaking. I looked at the false stone, the false box, the dark doorway. For 20 years, Ray had followed every clue my life gave him. Tomorrow, for the first time, the clue would be for him. Hey. Chapter 15. The Trap at the Boathouse. I arrived at the lake 10 minutes late on purpose. Ray's car was already there. He was not waiting by the house. He was not standing on the dock with his worried uncle face. He was inside the boathouse. Inspector Brandt and the officers were hidden nearby, documenting everything. Frank was with them. I walked down the path alone, my heart steady in a way that felt borrowed from my mother. The lake was gray. The morning was cold. The dock stretched out beside me, the place where patience began. Through the broken doorway, I saw Ray kneeling by the foundation. The loose stone lay on the floor beside him. The decoy box was open in his hands. "Uncle Ray," I said. He turned. For 1 second. The mask was gone, not slipped, gone. What looked back at me was small, cold, frightened, and furious. Then the warmth returned so quickly I might have doubted what I saw if my whole life had not been teaching me to doubt myself. "Sweetheart," he said, standing. "I got here early and saw the stone was loose. I was only making sure it was safe." "Safe from what?" I asked. "You told me you did not know Mom left anything here." His smile tightened. I guessed. "You sounded so upset on the phone." "You went straight to the stone." "I saw it was loose. It has been loose for 20 years. Emily." "Was this where she recorded you?" The question struck him before he could prepare for it. "She had no right to record me," he snapped. The warmth died in the air. I did not move. Ray heard himself. I watched him hear himself. His eyes shifted from me to the doorway, to the open box, to the room around him, and he understood too late that I had not come to discover the proof. I had come to watch him discover the absence of it. Inspector Brandt stepped into the doorway. Frank followed. The 2 officers came behind them. Ray looked at Frank first. "You." Frank Mercer held his gaze. "Yes. Ray? Me? This time I am writing it down properly." Brandt spoke then, formal and calm. Telling Ray the investigation into Robert Lawson's death was being reopened and that he needed to come with them to answer questions regarding new evidence. Ray tried to look at me, tried to find the child who had run to him for comfort, the bride who had held his arm, the daughter who had chosen warmth over silence. He could not find her. "You thought you were watching me," I said, "but she knew you would." That was the last riddle. "Uncle Ray, not the box. You..." His mouth opened. For the first time in my life, Ray had no useful words. Then the old voice tried one last time. "Emily, sweetheart, you are upset. These people do not know us. They do not know what your mother was like. They do not know how grief twisted her. I loved you. I raised you when she could not." "No," I said. "You stood close enough to make sure I never turned around." His face hardened. And underneath the hardening, I saw something ancient and pitiful. Fear. Not fear of me. Fear of being seen without the warmth he had spent 20 years wearing. Brandt gave a small nod to the officers. They led him out of the boathouse and into the gray morning. I stayed behind with my mother's final letter in my hands and the lake beyond the door. Still beautiful, still terrible. Finally giving back what it had held. Frank stood beside me after a while. "Your mother was brave," he said. I looked at the empty place behind the stone. "No," I said softly. "She was patient. Then I understood that those were almost the same thing. Chapter 16. The Glass Breaks. My father's case was reopened that week. This time, it did not close, clean and fast and wrong. This time, it moved slowly, properly. In the light, Inspector Brandt handled the machinery of it. Evidence logs, statements, forensic review, old records, new interviews, the careful building of a case that could stand without needing grief to explain itself. Frank Mercer gave a statement about what he had seen and failed to pursue 20 years before. Evelyn Price gave the ledger. Caleb Ward gave the key, the launch, the rope, the morning by the boathouse. Martha Klein gave the porch. Lydia gave my mother's instructions. My father's papers gave the motive. My mother's recordings gave the truth a voice Ray could no longer worm his way around. What happened to Ray after that belongs to the public record and to rooms I do not need to enter again. There were proceedings, questions, consequences. There was no single thunderclap of justice, no perfect moment where the world repaired itself all at once. Truth works more slowly than stories pretend. It moves like water into cracks. But it moved, and for the first time in 20 years. My father's death was not called an accident by anyone who mattered. I thought that would be the center of the ending. My father's name cleared, Ray exposed, the lie broken. It was all of those things. But it was not the part I carried most. The part I carried was my mother. I read her final letter on the dock 2 days after Ray was taken away. The last thing she had left me. I sat where she had taught me to be patient. With the lake gray and quiet around me, and unfolded the page. My darling Emily, if you are reading this, then you have reached the end of what I could leave. I am sorry the path was so long. I am sorry I could not walk it with you. I am sorrier than words can hold for every year you thought my distance meant the love was not there. I need you to understand the choice I made. Though I know understanding will not give us back the years. After your father died, Ray placed himself between us. Not by force, by warmth. He became the voice you trusted. And I knew that if I accused him without proof strong enough to survive him, he would make you believe grief had made me cruel. You were a child. You had lost your father. I could not risk making you lose the only person you still believed was holding you. So I stood back. I let him be warm. I became the cold one. I told myself that one day, when you were older, when I had enough to leave you, you would see not only what he had done, but why I kept silent. I hope you can forgive me. But if forgiveness is too much, then at least know this. Every silence was love. Every distance was fear for you, not distance from you. I was never on the other side of the glass because I wanted to be. I was there because I was holding the fire back. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried for her as a daughter who had found her mother too late. For 30 years, I thought I was standing on the cold side of my mother's glass. I thought she had locked me out. But the glass had never been a wall against me. It had been a shield in front of me. She had stood between me and the fire so long that I mistook the shape of her body for a door that would not open. I kept the gray coat. It hangs in my closet now, ordinary and worn. The lining repaired where I cut the first letter free. Sometimes I place my hand on it the way you place a hand on a shoulder. I kept the fishing rod too. Though I do not fish, I kept my father's watch from the birthday box. I kept my mother's letters in a safe place. Not because I need to read them every day, but because some truths deserve a house after being homeless for so long. I went back to the lake once more after everything was finished. I sat at the end of the dock until the light changed on the water. I thought about my father. A good man who trusted his brother because good men sometimes believe goodness is contagious. I thought about my mother, who understood evil more clearly than anyone gave her credit for, and chose patience because patience was the only weapon left to her. I thought about the girl I had been, the one who ran to Ray and pulled away from Helen, and I forgave her because she had been a child inside a story written by adults who knew more than she did. The thing my mother left me was not only a case, it was not only proof, or justice, or the truth about my father, though it was all of those things too. The thing she left me was herself, the real her, the woman behind the glass, the woman I had always had and never known. She used her death to introduce me to my mother, and late as it was, painful as it was, I would not trade that introduction for anything. When I finally stood to leave the dock, I heard her voice in memory, not cold now, not distant, but patient. The things worth catching come to those who can sit still longest. She had been right. About patience. About Ray. About the glass. About love. Too. Though it took me almost my whole life to understand the shape of hers. My mother did not leave me revenge. She left me the truth. And then, from the other side of death, with a coat, a trail of riddles, and 20 years of courage, she broke the glass herself. And she let me in. Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you, tell me which moment stayed with you most. And subscribe for more stories like this one. I read every comment, and I will see you in the next story.